Hello, my name is Bob Brown, and it's my privilege to host this show, which is based on the reality that Westborough is a great town filled with interesting people. Many of them are long-term residents who have so many memories and stories about life in Westborough in days gone past. And so your local cable station, Westborough TV, has initiated this series of programs which are designed to reflect upon life in earlier days and to possibly make suggestions about how we can improve life in this fine town for the future. Well, this afternoon we have the real privilege of being able to talk to Ruth Davidson. And Lee Emery is along with us today to help talk with Lee because she knows Ruth better than I do. And Frank is also here. So it's going to be kind of a four-way conversation, trying to understand a little bit more about Ruth's life and what she's meant to Westborough and what she's done with her life in full detail as much as we can get. So, would you tell us when you were born and where you were born?
Oh, in Hyde Park, New York.
Great.
And that was on 93.
Wow.
Amazing.
Good for you. Good for you.
And you were born on a farm, Ruth?
Actually, it was a street. We went to the farm when I was about 10.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was born in a house near the farm.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a farm was it?
Well, everyone had a farm in those days.
Right.
I mean, that's where you lived. It was we had a team of horses, and we had cows to milk, and to make butter.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we didn't sell anything.
So it's mostly for your own subsistence
Yes,
farming.
That's right.
Because the picture you have up there, which they may get later on, was a pretty large, big barns, a lot of space, chickens and everything.
Yes, well, yes, we used it all.
Very good. Now, one reason I wanted Bob Brown to interview you for this program was I met you in the ophthalmology office, and I found out from your son Frank that you were a nurse. You're always a nurse once you're a nurse, but that you landed at Omaha Beach after the invasion.
That's right.
So I thought that was so interesting. There are so few people around now that have that experience to talk about. Could you tell us a little bit about why you became a nurse, and then some about your experience in the war?
Well, I think I was very impressed with my father's friends. My father was a plumber, and he had friends who were plumbers, and they were married. Some of them were married to nurses, and they would come to visit and tell me about nurses, and I really thought that was a good occupation.
So as a teenage girl, you had these role models.
Yes, oh yes, they were friends of my father's.
Yeah. Did you have a choice? Could you be a teacher or a nurse?
It never occurred to me that I would be a teacher.
So just nursing right from the beginning.
Well, yeah, I met these nurses, but they were always employed.
Oh yeah.
It occurred to me that might be a good
Very
idea.
practical. So, where did you go to school? How did you get your training?
Well, my mother had a lot of children, and what happens is every time it was time to have another baby, she got help from the relatives, and the relatives took the other children.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I came to New York.
Aha.
I had an aunt who lived in the Bronx, and so when a baby was coming, I went to stay with my aunt,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way we lived.
So when you went to New York, is that where you went to nursing school? Because
Yes.
you were in New York already?
No, I was not in New York City. I lived in Hyde Park, and I went there because my mother sent me there because there was a baby coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that is how then I met a friend, and through my aunt, and that's how I decided to go back there because of my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that's how I went to St. Luke's.
Oh, okay. So was it St. Luke's Hospital?
Yes,
School of Nursing.
yes.
So was that something like they were when I was in nursing school in the 60s? Was it a 3-year program?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And did you go to a lot of different hospitals for your training?
Yes, we went to Presbyterian, and we also went to psychiatric in Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
And where else did we go?
Probably you had some OBGYN training.
Yes, that was at Presbyterian.
Yeah.
But we had in those days we had communicable disease, so we
Oh, yes.
had to go to Willard Parker.
Mm-hmm.
That was an experience.
I'll bet. Because they were following up on syphilis, cases of syphilis then. So when you graduated from nursing school, do you remember what year it was that you graduated?
Yes, because it's in the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
41.
In 41, okay. So when did you actually decide to join the armed forces, and how did that happen?
Well, St. Luke's had a unit in World War I, and this was just a reactivation of their unit. So they told us about it, and we had many St. Luke's nurses then joined this unit, and that.
So did you go with friends? You had some
Yes.
girlfriends that you went with?
Yes, classmates. There
Wow.
were 3 or 4 classmates. It was not like the regular army.
Mhm.
It was very different because it was like you're with your friends.
Yeah. So where did they send you first when you joined the Army? Was it the Army, Air Force, or Army? What was the actual
It was called-
military unit?
It was called the Army,
Army, okay.
and we came to Fort Devens.
So how long were you at Fort Devens? What was your training like?
Well, marching.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basic training and toughing us up a little.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly outdoor training and getting used to the way the food was served.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Did they give you any training on how to take care of wounded men
no.
there?
No, we should know how to do that.
Okay.
I mean, as a nurse,
Yeah.
we had we had wound care.
So they thought you were ready to be thrown right into the battle scene.
Yes, I guess so.
Okay. So then, how long was it before you actually went overseas? Or how did that happen, that
Yes.
you went overseas?
Yes, we did. We went over under Queen Mary.
For heaven's sakes. Wow. How long did that take?
Well, actually, in those days, we had to swerve for U-boats.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to change course something like every 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was just like this across the whole Atlantic.
Did it make people sick?
No, I mean, you were totally unaware that it was happening. They
Interesting.
told us it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it was preferable to going on any other kind of a ship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you got to Europe, and where did they send you first?
Well, first we went to North Ireland because I think they had no place to send us to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a camp there. There were men there who had yellow fever shots, and they were all jaundiced. And I think they just as soon keep that quiet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
So they were in North Ireland.
A quiet place during the war. And then what happened next?
Well, finally, we then took care of the 8th Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we came back to England and moved to different places and ran hospitals and took care of the wounded who come back from the flights.
I see.
So this went on until the invasion.
Uh-huh.
And
So you were getting quite a bit of practice, really, taking
I'd like to
care of
just
wounded
interject
people.
one thing here that I find astounding.
Yeah.
My mother and probably the others were so tired from these long shifts of nursing that she slept at night through the Blitz.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. Oh no, I could sleep through anything.
So when you had Frank and he was a little baby crying, you just totally ignored him at night?
I gave him to his father.
Very good. So that's interesting because we in the United States have never experienced anything like the Blitz. So it was really pervasive all over England.
Well, actually, we were at it depended on, we were one place, Dursley it was called, and we were never bombed there. But there was something about the way the clouds formed or something, but they never bombed us at Dursley.
Mm-hmm.
So there were places like that. But London, of course, we were always going to London to have a good time,
Uh-huh.
and bombed there every night.
Wow. Would you go down into the underground
We had
train stations?
Yes, we would go down there.
Yeah. So you were taking care of airmen who came back from the front to the hospitals where you were stationed, and then the invasion took place. We're talking about, do you
Yep.
want to say a little bit about what we're talking about for our viewing public, the invasion?
Yeah, we're talking about D-Day. We're talking about the time when the American forces went over and landed in France, on the beaches, and lost many, many, many people.
And how did you learn that you were going to be part of this group of a medical corps that went to support the men after they landed on Omaha? How did you find out that was what you were going to do next?
Well, I joined a hospital unit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what St. Luke's had, a hospital unit. And so I joined, that's what I joined.
Right.
And then, I mean, that was part of the war. And then later I transferred to smaller units that were more active,
Mm-hmm.
were closer to the front lines.
Mm-hmm. What did you think when you found out you were going to go to the front line?
Oh, that I liked.
Oh, you did? You were excited. You wanted the action.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. It just seems like I would imagine somebody might be a little bit frightened and worried, but you must have been caught up in this whole
Well,
war effort.
People just say that we just didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't recall being afraid.
Good for you. What did you go over on? Did you go on LST, a landing craft, to the beach?
Oh, I'll tell you that about landing. So landing on Omaha Beach, there was nothing to get us off the ship, so we went down a cargo net.
Mm-hmm.
They threw a cargo net over the end of the ship, and
Right.
that's how we climbed down that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were those duck boats.
Yeah.
They were sitting down there waiting for us.
Hmm.
So we went in on a duck boat.
And were you in nursing uniforms, or did you have trousers and jackets? Were you in
No,
dresses or
we-
trousers and
No,
jackets?
we wore fatigues. They called.
Fatigues. Okay.
That's what. In fact, that's what I wore the whole war.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you got in that duck boat and headed toward the beach.
Toward the beach.
And then what were you thinking?
Getting off.
Yeah, getting off safely, huh? And how long after the actual invasion did you go into that beach? The invasion was on the 6th of June?
Yeah, I think it was postponed once, and then, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
So did you go,
Had bad weather, and they had to change it.
did you go the day of the invasion or a couple days after?
I
How
think
did
it
that
was-
work?
I think it was D+7.
D
Seems to me.
+7,
Mhm.
okay.
At the top of the hill, it wasn't an airfield. It was just a field, and planes would land. I would tell you about one incident that happened
Mm-hmm.
because, what we had to do was to get on the top of the hill to set up our hospital. So that's where this happened. And well, the nurse was sitting by her 2 foot lockers. That was the desk,
Mm-hmm.
and a foot locker to sit on.
Mm-hmm.
And well, her mess kit was hanging on a tent pole. And while we were sitting there, a bullet went through.
Wow.
Wow,
A bullet went through her mess kit.
wow.
So they told us then it was friendly fire.
So it wouldn't hurt, huh?
Well, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Because there was this make-believe airfields right across the, I call it like across the street.
Mhm.
It was no street there,
Mhm.
but it was on the top of the hill. So that's,
So did they have a make-believe airfield to sort of trick the enemy, and then they had a
No.
real airfield, or
oh no,
or it just wasn't actually built
it was just a
as
cow
a field?
pasture.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So it wasn't really make-believe because people landed there, but they didn't
had-
do any enhancement to the pasture.
No.
Were gliders coming in there at that time?
I don't remember any gliders, but gliders for the invasion.
Yeah.
Because there were gliders, and when we landed and on up that hill, there were still people hanging,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Oh.
on branches. And
Paratroops, yeah.
and the terrible thing is that everybody shot them, even though they were dead.
Oh,
They kept shooting those people
poor
hanging.
people.
Yeah.
How disturbing to see that.
Well,
Yeah. So you had to help put up your own hospital?
yes. Well, our corpsmen did it.
Oh, the corpsmen did it, okay.
I mean, we were an evac hospital, and we moved very quickly. So, in one day, everything is running.
Wow.
I mean,
Ruthie, tell these people, this just goes to show you how things don't change ever. Tell these people, you're up at the top of the hill and this guy comes to you and he wants you to go visit some people.
oh yes. Well, this actually, this was on the beach. And
You're on the beach.
we were on the beach, and we were waiting there because we couldn't get up the hill, but we had to wait for trucks to take us, drive us up the hill and take our equipment up.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this other tent was full of wounded soldiers who had to go to England.
Mm.
So he said, would you come in and say hello to my guys? So I went in and opened the tent flap, and they screamed. They screamed, women! American, lipstick.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and then all the shaving kits start coming out.
Yes,
Good for them, though.
Yes.
That's right,
Good
absolutely.
for their morale.
yes, and so they did. The first thing they did was reach under their bunks for their shaving kits and start
Make
shaving.
presentable, yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That's great.
So then within 24 hours, they had your hospital set up.
Oh, within that afternoon.
That
it was
afternoon,
I
wow.
was giving penicillin.
Wow, amazing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that was a
some-
new drug then.
Yes.
Some of the first
Yeah.
penicillin ever given was given
Right,
by
Yes, by us.
Yeah, brand new.
Oh,
Isn't it amazing?
it was so full of it's so full of junk. I mean, it gave you such a reaction. It was terrible.
Oh, because it was such a
Impure.
new, impure drug still.
Oh,
Yeah, but
terrible.
it saved so many lives.
Yes,
It
yes,
was a
they seem to get
game
better.
changer. Yeah. So, what kind of patients did you have? What sort of wounds did you see in
Well,
that hospital?
well, I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, anyone who had a belly wound, they had to have a colostomy done on them.
Mm.
So because they had no way of telling whether there were shrapnel pieces, any more bullets or anything. So anybody with a belly wound had to have a temporary colostomy.
Wow. And that's a complicated procedure, and it's a complicated post-operative course for nurses to take care of, because patients end up with a little stoma on their stomach, and all of their bowels come out of that, so they have to have a bag on there. The skin has to be kept very clean and fresh so they don't get a wound on their skin. It's very complicated nursing care, isn't it, Ruth?
Well, yes, but they didn't stay long with us.
Yeah, they got right out.
Well, I mean, they took them to, because you had to finish the surgery.
Hmm.
I mean, right then, there was just an open colostomy. It was the only thing you could do.
Oh, because they didn't even have the bags then,
No.
like we have now.
No.
Wow, so there would be a dressing that would have to be changed constantly.
Right.
But these
How
people were being
difficult.
evacuated quickly, right?
Well, as soon as you could get them out and to England where they could finish the surgery.
Okay.
How would
So-
they get them out? Did they fly them out, or they go take them back out to the
And
ships?
took 'em- those ships that brought us over took
Took 'em
some
back.
of 'em right back. It's a very short trip.
Yes, right.
So
So would they operate on a soldier and then try to get them out in that same day or the next day?
well, depends what you're doing. I mean, 50% of our patients die.
Wow.
So you can see that we have really non-transportable wounded for the most part.
Non-transportable wounded.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the ones that were transportable, we usually sent to England
Mm-hmm.
for further care.
Mm-hmm. So while you were doing that kind of nursing, that was every time we have a war, medicine advances and people learn skills that they didn't have in the last war. Is there anything that you remember learning and thinking, wow, we're really doing something new and different now?
Yes, penicillin.
Penicillin, okay. And anything else in terms of the surgeries or the nursing care that you
Well,
gave?
now a lot of this I'm not. I didn't work with the surgery,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. Except that I know that everyone had to have a colostomy. That I do know if you had a belly wound. And,
But you were giving them something that nobody else could give. You were giving them hope. You were making them brighter. You were seeing somebody American.
American women, that's all they
That
scream.
has a whole lot to do with living.
But No, I'll tell you
That's
what,
true.
from what you told me, that a couple of days after some penicillin, a guy could wake up and start sniffing around a little bit, and just because all of a sudden, he felt like he was dead.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this magic stuff, this
Yeah.
penicillin, and like there's a bunch of nurses floating around, and life's not so bad.
That's right. That's right.
Good.
That's right.
Did you see a lot of people that lost limbs, their legs or arms, and amputations that had to happen?
I'm afraid those people died.
A lot of them died. They
Yeah.
lost too much blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what was the blood transfusion situation
Oh,
like?
that was terrible because we didn't know anything about blood transfusions. We didn't know about I can't think what you call
About
it.
the different types of blood, AB and
No, it's
Oh.
it's another factor. I can't
the
even.
RH negative and
Yes,
positive factor?
yes.
Okay. So we didn't have a good handle on that.
We didn't know about it.
Yeah. So sometimes you would give blood and people would have a bad
That's
reaction.
right. That's right. We didn't know about it.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that was something that wasn't
The-
available knowledge
the
during the
RH
beginning
factor,
of
that's
World
what
War
it was.
II.
The RH factor. Yes, we did not know. We did have a lot of transfusion reactions, and we didn't know what was happening.
And they happen very
Sorry,
quickly.
did I touch something?
Yeah,
Yes,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they can be fatal very quickly.
yes.
Yeah. It's kind of horrific when that happens. Well, so how long were you there at that? How long were you stationed in that hospital, Ruth?
Well, we moved. At the St. Luke's evac unit, they stayed at Diddington for a long time, and because the Air Force had casualties for a long time, so everything that came back went to either that hospital or then it depends what airfield they went out of, where they came back. But there were hospitals all over.
Mm-hmm. So did you stay there for 6 months or a year, or how long were you actually stationed at
Actually,
Omaha Beach at that hospital?
oh,
Do you remember?
no, the hospital was moved up the hill and then it went on
Ah.
to Sumter, and then you went on,
You
So
kept moving.
So you moved with your hospital?
yes.
So how long were you in that type of service? Was it a year or 2 years? How long was your tour of duty?
In
Moving-
that type of service.
Yeah, in that type of service.
Well, we were at Diddington year and a half, I would say.
Wow.
Till VE Day. You were there to the end.
You were there till the
Were you
end?
really? Wow.
Where was I at VE Day?
Belgium?
Oh, we went through the Bulge. That's when we had to be evacuated to Belgium because they thought we'd be captured.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
in the
yes,
Battle of the Bulge.
yes.
So when you were in Belgium, were you also doing nursing, or were
Oh,
you
yes.
just okay? So you,
No, we were there. No, we
they
weren't.
kind of put you up and said, "Stay here and be quiet."
Someone brought some liquor.
And Belgium chocolates. Now you had a brother
Yes.
that was in the service.
He was in Hawaii and he was injured in Hawaii
Hmm.
at the first Jap invasion.
At Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
So was he a pilot too?
No, he was at that point he was a mess sergeant.
Ah.
I mean, it's very different today. I mean, they didn't have meals sent in like they do today. I mean, everybody had to do their own cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought that was a good job, so he was mess sergeant.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was nice not to be at combat, but did he end up
Oh,
being in
yes.
combat?
Yes, as
Yeah.
soon as he got better, he was trained to be a gunner,
Mm-hmm.
and he was killed and he went to Palesti oil fields. That's where he was killed, and I think he was in one of our own ships, B-17.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, where's those oil fields? Are those in Russia?
Poland.
Oh, Poland. Okay, the Polish oil fields. So he was flying bombing missions
yes,
over the oil fields in Poland.
yes,
Yeah, and was he shot down?
yes.
Did they find him?
Yes, the people who found him buried him, and with his dog tags.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
So that's how they.
So how did your family ever recover his body or go there,
No.
or what happened?
Yeah, my sister did the negotiating, and she said she wanted his body brought back.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever was in that casket, it
Mhm.
came back.
Mhm.
Everyone said that some places it's just stones to put in because
Because there wasn't enough of a
No.
person left.
right.
But you got his dog tags, so you actually knew
That's
that he
where
wasn't missing somewhere.
That's right.
That you had some closure.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, the dog tags really were good for that reason.
Yeah. And what was your maiden name?
Collins.
So it was Raymond Collins.
Yes.
And how old was he when he was shot down?
Well, he couldn't have been. He joined the army when he was, what, 18?
Yeah.
Something.
Well, he was older than you, right?
And he was in Hawaii. I really don't know how old he was.
When he died?
Yeah, but he was certainly young.
Yeah, everybody was really young.
Yeah. He did marry someone when he came home on leave. He married someone. That always annoyed us because she got his $1,000.
Oh. And you didn't really get to know her because they
Didn't
were
know her at
together
all.
so
That's
so
right.
little.
He
such a
married her
little
while he
time.
was on leave,
Yeah.
and she got his $1,000.
I think that happened a lot.
I
though,
think so.
Because men were lonely and they were worried about going off to war, and they got married fast.
Yes.
Now you were married, and was your husband also in the war?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't know him in the war.
Mm-hmm.
I knew him later.
Okay.
So,
Was he a pilot?
no.
What did he do?
He was in a tank.
Oh,
I didn't know much about his service.
He
you didn't talk too much about his service.
He chased Rommel around North Africa, and then they worked their way up from the boot of Italy all the way up.
Wow.
And Frank's war ended at Auschwitz, cleaning out Auschwitz.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Did he ever talk about getting to Auschwitz and what he saw?
Yes, but he didn't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
There's some things that happened there that were, I think they shot the wrong people and things like that happened.
Yeah. So it was difficult to talk about.
They didn't talk about it much at all.
Yeah. I think it's amazing that so much of your family was involved in the war effort, which was typical, I think, of a lot of families in the United States. My father and his brother were both in the war, and my Auntie Peg was a nurse, but she didn't actually serve. I think she stayed here in the United States the whole time. But all of their friends, Joe Nason and Bob Hennessy, all those people were in the war, and a lot of their wives were WACs or WAVEs. It really encompassed whole families and sets of friends.
Well, there's an awful lot of people served in this war.
That's right.
Was there anyone else from your family or your husband's family that was in the service?
No, I don't think so.
You were the
No.
ones? Yeah.
No, probably not. Of course, he didn't know a whole lot about his southern relations either, so we don't know what they did.
No.
but I don't think so. VE Day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, first off, so they're all hooping and hollering but then off they go on the boats, through the Panama Canal, and out into the Pacific.
Oh, my
Because
gosh.
we don't, at this
Right.
point, at this point, we're thinking it's a land invasion of Japan.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that, except Truman and a few other people, that there's this other option that they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so every nurse in the world, they're sending out to the Pacific Ocean.
Were you sent out to the Pacific
Yes,
Ocean?
yes.
Oh, well, tell us about that.
Well, first we went to something in the southern part of France.
Okay.
And then we went to the Riviera for four days.
Mm-hmm.
While they were,
Getting ready to
Yes.
ship you out.
yes.
So you
then-
had 4 days of kind of rest?
Yes, there was nothing else to do, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Got a little rest.
went swimming.
Oh, wonderful.
But then we got back and the ship was injured. We don't know what happened. Some says the enlisted men threw something in the machine.
Didn't want to go.
And I wouldn't put that past some of them.
Yeah.
So they had to fix that. So that's why we stayed there in Panama for and we were taken off the ship and in somebody's quarters.
So you went by boat from France to the Panama Canal,
Right,
and then you had to stay there for a while because there was damage to the ship.
right.
Okay.
Well, they fixed it.
Yeah.
And then, but we didn't know the war was going to be over shortly, but we didn't know that. So we were prepared, and I had been prepared to be a chief nurse in a large hospital. So when we got to Manila, I found out that I have enough points to go home. So that's what I did.
You did. So that was after 2 or 3 years, probably.
Yes.
I think
It would have to be, yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
And I'll tell you something very interesting. So Ruth hitches a ride home from the Pacific Ocean on the hospital ship Mercy. And who do we find out while sitting having iced tea at the 4th of July with a grand old lady? Mrs. Ward. Mrs. Ward was a staff nurse
For heaven's
on,
sakes.
on the
Mrs.
hospital
Ward
ship.
from here in Westborough.
Yes, yes.
Dave
Yeah.
Ward's father.
Yes.
For heaven's sakes.
A mother, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, now she's passed on, but they didn't, obviously, there's thousands of people on the boat, but
Sure.
I just thought it was interesting that 2 people who came home from the Pacific,
Yeah.
both Army nurses, should end up sharing a ride on a boat and end up living a mile away from each
Isn't that
other in
amazing?
Westborough, Massachusetts.
And her husband Jim lost his lower
He
leg
lost.
during the war.
Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
he was a dairy farmer here
Yes,
in
yes, he
Westborough.
was.
And I remember we'd go to visit his dairy, and I would always hear this little creak, creak, and I didn't understand what it was. And my father explained to me that he was a veteran and had lost his leg, and
Yep,
it's like, wow. But he just went right about his business.
yep.
A very good farmer.
There were a lot of reunions like that. Just spurred among Bob Hennessy and Joe Mason
Mm-hmm. Met out in Guam.
met in Guam, and there was one other that.
And Uncle Dick.
And Uncle, yeah,
Bob Hennessy found out where Dick was, because they had
That's
been
right.
very close boyhood friends, and flew to Guam, and he said he found Dick out on the airfield underneath his bomber. My Uncle Dick, Richard Emery, was a pilot on a bomber. And Bob Hennessy was amazed because the runway in Guam ended in a cliff. And my Uncle Dick did nightly flights every single night, and Bob Hennessy said he couldn't believe it because that plane would take off. It was so heavy, it didn't have enough runway. It would drop down, and then they'd have to slowly rise up again. And he said my uncle never complained about it at all. It's just like, that's what you do every night, you know? Amazing. But he got to see him for about 4 hours and got back on his boat,
Amazing.
or on his plane.
So then home you go, right?
Yes, but then I went to school.
You went back to school,
Mhm.
and what did you do at school?
Well, I got I held, and then I had my bachelor's, so I got my master's.
My.
But that's much later, Ruth.
Well, it was while I was working.
Yeah.
Right.
But for a nurse of your era, it was very unusual to get a master's degree. When I got mine, only 4% of the nurses in the United States had master's degrees in 1970, so I can't imagine how few had them when you did that.
Well, I wanted to get a good pension.
That was smart.
But her master's degree was late 60s.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
She had been a public health nurse and visiting nurse and a supervising nurse and then went back and got her master's in civil service through way to become the director of the Rockland County, New York Public Health Department.
Wow.
Wow.
But very few women who went into
Right.
nursing when she did got their master's
No,
degrees.
no.
That's quite unusual. I hope you were proud of yourself.
Well, yes, I am. I have my book from St. Luke's, and I have it all written down in the book, so anyone can read it.
Good.
Oh, that's good. So you have sort of a little history of yourself that you wrote down?
Well,
For
it's
posterity?
just my educational.
Oh, okay.
That's in St. Luke's book.
So then you had a career in public health.
Yes, I was a director of public health nursing, and I was maybe 8 years. But then I decided to retire. Well, actually, I was sick.
You're looking at somebody who survived ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you.
wow.
Yes, I had ovarian cancer, and it had metastasized.
You were very fortunate.
So, yes, I had a very good doctor
Mm.
from Harvard.
Only the best. Well, you've had a long and very interesting life and done things that very few people have done. It's really quite interesting.
Well, I certainly enjoyed myself.
Mm.
But I think there's more than that. You've done a tremendous service for this
Yes,
country.
yeah.
And folks like you really need to be honored and remembered. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this, so the whole town will know who you are and what you've done.
What you
And,
did.
and congratulations and thank you.
And thank you, yes.
Yes, well, it was really a part of life.
Well,
I bet a lot of men were incredibly grateful for what you did, for the entire nursing corps and you as a person, but the entire effort of young women who put themselves in danger too.
Well,
There were nurses who died too
Yes,
in those places.
how long it went on, I mean, and how many wars we've had since then, too.
we don't seem to learn, do we?
No.
Well, we thank you very much for your hospitality and allowing us to
Yeah.
come into your home and to talk to your mother and you, and
Delighted to have you.
it's very, very nice.
Delighted we had not a snowstorm today.
Yes, that's very nice not to have a
That's a
snowstorm.
change.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much again, Ruth. It was really nice to talk to you.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.